the motivation went from 100% to 120%. So seeing
Wow.
everyone trying to mimic something that, we did or that Chef Manny did on the stage, throughout the year was just, again, the cherry on top.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by E-Menu Choice Point of Sale and Clark Food Service Equipment. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Tips from Trestle, joining me for the first half of the podcast is Catie Ramp. Catie is the president and CEO of the Georgia Senior Living Association and has over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit and association world focusing on leadership development. She is also a board member for Age Tech Atlanta and is the current chair of the Argentum State Executives. Catie, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. I'm excited about our conversation.
Yeah, I am glad we're doing this. Obviously, we're going to talk about your culinary competition at your conference here back in October. Was a great event. I was super excited to be a part of it. And so I want to kind of dive into, as an association, the value, right? And so from your perspective, why do you see the need to have an event like this that really truly highlights and focuses on the culinary departments?
You know, Aaron, I think it's easy for state associations and for larger national associations to focus on the executive director and some of the leadership team inside of that. That sounds a little more typical. Sales and marketing, our operations, our business office manager. And I think that we often forget in this space that our culinary directors are part of the culture that's set inside of our communities. One of the joys of my position is that I get to visit a lot of communities around our state and the states in general. And a conversation I think that just keeps rising to the top is the experience that comes in these communities with our chefs. These are folks that have worked at 4, 5-star restaurants. One of the judges at our culinary competition this year is a current culinary director in communities, and he is a former Michelin star chef from the Ritz-Carlton. He's fantastic, and that's a great example of what we're experiencing and what our residents get to experience. And so I think it's important for us to remember that when we're supporting our leadership, our culinary program is a highlight of what we get to do.
Yeah. I always try to remind people that, the food and the dining experience is a top 3 satisfier for residents, either that are looking prospects or residents that are currently in communities. And so, yeah, I love that you guys are putting a focus on not just great food, but the leaders and their value to that whole senior living experience.
I think leaders have legs. Their leadership does not end by leaving a good meeting or leading a group of people. It is about the people that you are leading. So if you, as an executive director, have the opportunity to offer something good to your next level of leadership, which includes your culinary department, they are then offering great leadership to those people in their space in your building. It is the top 3. Nobody wants to move into a place that has that review. I look at restaurant reviews before I go to a restaurant. Why wouldn't someone do that when they're making a choice in their living situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And so this was the second year for the culinary competition. And so kind of looking back on that first go around and what you did the first time to this year, what would you say that you guys learned or that you did differently to kind of elevate the overall competition for the chefs participating and the audience that was there watching?
I think the lead-in time for applications, so a chef needs to apply to be a contender. We only have a specific amount of space. The stage is only so large, and our judges only have so much time to eat. And we're also in kind of an educational format. So there's a limited time frame. And so it's an application process. What we learned is the lead time needed to be longer. Opening that lead time a little bit longer opened the quantity of applications, but it also opened the quality of applications.
Yeah.
And so I think we learned that there are some really rich stories. One of the application questions is talking about their culinary journey, whether in senior living or not. And then it shifts the next question into their senior living experience. And I think that what I learned is that there are some fabulous stories inside of this. I also learned that I should be eating at senior living communities more. Everything that was on that stage. I mean, it all looked fantastic. We had
Yeah.
extra things. Someone made tea that complemented their meal because they were making cultural references inside of the food. And I loved that experience. I'm sure that we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but I love the experience of seeing the expression of the community that our chefs work in and the chefs themselves come out on stage. I think we have some other learnings about what spaces offer what to us and how we need to prepare. But those are things that are important for us to learn in general as that managers. But I really feel like I learned that the stories are so much bigger than the application, getting to meet the folks that were on stage, the sous chefs that they brought with them, which were
Yeah.
just an added bonus to the content of the day. I also learned our people really loved it. And the chefs that were not chosen, their staff was upset that they weren't chosen, which tells me apply earlier, make sure you tell a really great story.
Yeah. I think what you're saying about the storytelling is so important because I don't know that people relate the stories of senior living and the backstories of the food and everything that goes into that and relate that to how we can tell stories about the quality of life in a senior living community. Because it really is, it's not like a dotted line. It's like a direct line to kind of
Yeah.
explaining all of that and the way the relationships can be built in senior living too. So
Absolutely. And let me tell you, if someone doesn't like their living experience, the first thing they're going to complain about is the food. And then they're going to complain about the temperature. So if we can
Yeah.
control the temperature and the food, we're making happy residents.
absolutely, for sure. So I'm curious, when you think about your role as an association executive, right? Like you have to think about the big picture of how do you better the industry in the state of Georgia? What does an event like this do for that cause and for your association as you kind of look at the bigger picture of that?
I think part of what an event like this, and even we do an awards gala in the summer, and something like that, it brings this camaraderie piece to what we do. It builds community outside of a name tag and inside of an industry. If we can give people spaces to feel like they're partners, there's a little of the idea of co-opetition inside of that, but that they're partners, that they're doing something big and important together. There's so much value inside of that. I think our media is looking for ways to look down at a choice-driven communal living space.
Mm.
We can say, no, look at what we're offering. Some of our communities have 5-star menus that are coming. Some are catered to a culture very specifically. Some of them are catered to a diet specifically. I think when we bring people together around a common conversation, there's connectivity that we didn't even intend to happen, and
Yeah.
people develop friendships and relationships that reach far past their name tag, the community that they work in, because they care about what they're doing, they're passionate about what they're doing, and they're doing important work.
Yeah, I think that building the relationships and showing kind of what you mentioned earlier about the building all of the leadership, a lot of the other state associations that I've conferences I go to and I participate in, what you said about the focus on like the executive director or on the operations leaders, that tends to be kind of maybe overdone a little bit. And I think from my vantage point as a food executive, having the ability to have someone participate in an event like this, being able to showcase what an association can do to support them in growing themselves and developing themselves, I think is another advantage that can't go, unnoticed.
Yeah, I think, from a business perspective, we have to offer those things. What other states are doing, that's great. That is what they need to be doing. In terms of Georgia, we're looking for the next step of what our growth looks like and our growth opportunities. We do the same thing in business, right? We look at what's the next program? What's the next way I should involve myself? How can I make this different? Or how can I offer something that someone wishes that they were a part of? And for us, that was looking at a community holistically. It is a current ongoing thing. How do we look at a community holistically and make sure that everyone from the janitorial staff to a chef, to a direct care giver is being seen and recognized for the work that they do and the contributions they're making? Maybe that's not education every time. Maybe it's an awards. Maybe it's a highlight in a newsletter. But if there are ways that we can make sure that people are seen, I think that changes the narrative for the desire and passion of someone in this space. Everybody wants to be seen.
Yeah.
And I think this culinary competition does something like that. We don't see the chefs, right? They're the guys and occasionally they come out and walk, and girls. And sometimes they walk the dining room, but usually they're offering leadership in a space and it's other people that are. And so if we can give just a moment to say, I see you and you are doing something really great, I think it just offers just something special to that role.
Yeah. And I think about the shifting demographic of employees that we're bringing in and what, Gen Z and Gen A and kind of what their focus is and wanting to maybe be in a role where maybe they're not front and center as much and how they still can get that recognition. I think it's a huge advantage for operators in Georgia to be able to say, hey, look, yeah, you might work in the kitchen most of the time, but you're still going to be out and present and a part of the community, and we can still showcase you and your talent.
Mm-hmm. I loved in the stories that we got in the applications, not all of them were chefs applying for themselves. Sometimes it was their support staff or the administration in a building. And I loved the pride that people had when they wrote those stories. I toured a community a couple of weeks ago, and they were someone that was not chosen. And they walked me through their kitchen. They introduced me to their chef. We had a really great conversation about their history. And that administrator stood next to me and beamed because of the pride they have in who is creating this experience every day for their residents. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it all just comes together to create that great community experience for our residents. And so as we kind of wrap up here on the first half, I would love for you to share what you thought was your favorite moment or your biggest takeaway, or what was the one thing from this year's competition that really you walked away with?
I might have said something similar last year, but it's probably the passion that these chefs arrive with, they cook through, and they offer on their plates. It's beautiful. All of the food looked really great. There was one dish that I really wanted to eat desperately. I was not a judge. I would like to maybe make myself. They were not the winner, but they were so proud of that dish. Even though they didn't win, they were so proud of their dish.
Yeah.
I loved that. They wanted pictures on the stage to say they were part of something really important. And so I think passion is probably a memory that hits the top. And I will tell you, when Chef Manny won for the second year in a row, heavens to Betsy, that was right now. It was so fantastic. We were asked if we could come to his community for a board meeting so that he could cook that meal for us. He's so excited and passionate about the food that he cooks.
Yeah.
So it is such a pleasure to be able to serve our leaders who serve people every day. And this is a small way we get to do it. I'm so glad that I get this opportunity.
Yeah. No, I think you shared my takeaway as well. So, well, as you said, here in the second half, we're going to talk with Chef Manny, our back-to-back GSLA culinary competition champion, and get his views and his takeaway. And we'll probably get some similar impressions on his views on what he saw and what he experienced. So, Catie, thank you for joining me today, and have a great rest of your year.
Technology continues to drive changes in senior care, and that includes food service. eMenu Choice is an award-winning point-of-service application for managing the dining function in senior living communities. This mobile, touchscreen-enabled software enhances the dining experience for residents while streamlining processes for staff. The flexibility and functionality of eMenu Choice makes it an effective solution for any type of senior living environment, from independent and assisted living to skilled nursing facilities. It works for production kitchens or restaurant-style service with options for per meal or a la carte pricing, and accommodates a variety of payments, including bill to account, meal credits, and credit cards. Created by a senior care provider with more than a century of experience serving older adults, eMenu Choice eliminates communication barriers between staff and residents while enabling person-centered choices and greater resident satisfaction. eMenu Choice, transforming dining for senior living.
Joining me for the second half of today's Tips from Trestle podcast is Georgia Senior Living Association Culinary Competition winner for a second year in a row, Chef Manny Lasparilla and Chef Alan Velazquez. Chef Juan, better known as Chef Manny, is the food service director with Oaks at Gracemont. He has been working in the senior living industry for 13 years and is motivated by continuing to learn and adding experience to his career. Chef Alan is the director of dining services with Oaks Senior Living. He's been with Oaks Senior Living for 7 years, but has over 20 years of experience in the food and hospitality industry. He retired from the Army in 2012 and is a Johnson & Wales NMI University graduate. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today to talk culinary competitions.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Chef Manny, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about how the competition was different for you this year, because you've done it once already. You were going into this to protect your title, if you will. And so what is that like getting ready for a competition as a returning champion?
Well, winning the last year competition was an incredible feeling. So, but that put me, push myself to keep growing. And then, since then, I was trying to focus on refining my skills and then experimenting with new ideas. So, I was excited to bring all that progress to this year competition.
Yeah. One of the things that you did that was a little bit different, I'd love for you to talk about is, the first competition was let's make the plate, let's do a really great plate, but you added this extra level with the way you presented by having a tea. So if you could talk just a little bit about why you felt that was something you wanted to do, how that enhanced your offering to the judges, and how you think maybe that might have put you over the top.
Yeah, basically, we were trying to give a little bit of scale, on the presentation, and also try to cleanse the palate a little bit after the Norris chef present their plates. So that's what we were trying to do, so they can have a better experience on our dish, because, I'm pretty sure the Norris chef present a really, really good plates. So
Yeah.
we want to try to just cleaner the palettes a little bit, and then just try ours, nothing behind.
Yeah. When I saw you doing that, the thing in my mind that kind of what you were saying that triggered it was the experience from the previous year, knowing that, unless you're the very first person going, like you do have that, like, okay, well, there's the multiple meals and how does that impact the palate? I thought a really smart move to be like, well, no, we're going to start fresh. And so I'm just going to do that palate cleanser. And I really do think that probably had a good impact on the way your meal was taken in. So, Alan, when you think about this in the bigger picture as a culinary executive, right? You oversee a number of communities. How does having Chef Manny being a part of a competition like this and winning it even impact the bigger culinary team for the Oaks?
Well, first, thank you for having me here again. It's good to be with you guys, and that's a great question. And last year it was the first go around for everyone in the state. Having one, which was just a cherry on top, allowed us to come back and look forward to defending that title, and look forward to coming up with new ideas. However, when we started thinking about this, all of these things, combined, I started seeing different chefs who have not been as loud, if you would, in the culinary field within our industry, just come out, start, chipping in, hey, here's an idea for this. So I think it was great that that happened, but the outcome of was just so many other different chefs within our communities, within our organization, just saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of this somehow, some way." And then the motivation went from 100% to 120%. So seeing
Wow.
everyone trying to mimic something that we did or that Chef Manny did on the stage, throughout the year was just again the cherry on top. So
Yeah. It's kind of that unintentional competition, right? Like
yep,
you're not competing each other because you're a team, but at the same time, we all know as like, food guys and chefs that that's something that kind of have in us a little bit.
yeah, no, we compete all the time, but it's all good.
It's kind of plain fun is what that is. So,
Yes.
yeah, Manny, I want to just pick your brain a little bit. When you think about coming back, right? You're kind of you're the focus, right? Everybody else is there. And where's there, the fact that they're there is an accomplishment, but you kind of got to protect your title a little bit. And so, when I think about that, what's the most challenging part coming into a competition in that frame of mind, and how did you overcome it?
Well, yeah, I think the most challenging part was trying to stay calm with the pressure because, of course, I was defending the title, so it was a lot of pressure on me. But I'm trying to balance, the creative and the timing was also really challenged. But, I just try to focus, trying to do one step at a time. And then, like try to don't panicking if something doesn't go so like we planned it. But everything was good. I'm a little bit nervous, a lot of pressure, like I say. But I was more chef this year than last year also. And I can tell, I was, a higher skill for all those chefs. So it was a little bit challenge, but yeah, we did it. So
Yeah, I think you make a good point about like I think the competition was elevated this year, right? Because there were more chefs, and I know for a fact, I was talking to Katie in the first half. They turned away a number of chefs because they just didn't have enough spots, and so that's you got to think that the cream of the crop kind of went to the top, which is great. This question's for both of you. One of the things that Katie and I talked about was you were able to bring someone as a sous chef, right? Someone to come and work with you, help you with preparation. What's the benefit, man, you're as a competitor and Alan, you thinking about like the big picture of like employee development. How does that impact what you're focusing on? And man, let's start with you with the competition.
well, no, being a sous chef is a good support. Is a mentally support. Also, of course, the company, like Adam said, we have a little competition, but we support each other. We share ideas, and we talk about how to elevate, our some presentation to our residents. So it is a good support to have somebody on your team next to you, and like give you some ideas right there on the moment because not everything is planned. Like we have a plan to do a dish, but sometimes something changes during the competition, and then probably we have a different ideas and we change something and say let's go with this better than this, or the fry pan is not too hot. It's not like we were expecting. So it was a good support to have another person next to you and then, help you with those things. Chef Maurice, we call it Chef Maurice, fantastic. And I think we did a great job. I'm really thankful to him too.
Do you think, that being able to have another pair of hands let you create a more intricate dish or a more elevated dish than maybe you would be able to do by yourself?
No, I think I'm capable to do it by myself too. Right? But it's a big support, mentally it's
Yeah.
a support, but that's what we chef do, work under pressure sometimes. And that's where you become a good chef. Whatever you have, a situation you have to, get through and make it succeed. So
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense. And Alan, the kind of the employee development piece, right? Like one of the things that I know I'm always like trying to talk to operators and press them on is, where are you going to develop not just your leaders, but the people who are going to be your leaders and how you retain staff. And so how does having someone like Chef Mo participate as a sous chef help you and your team do those kinds of things?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, great question. I think there's one thing, small detail that we're missing here, and it's location. So last year, the competition was in the Savannah area, and as you know, Oak Senior Living, we carry communities throughout the entire state of Georgia and then some. So having Chef Brandon last year, which, he came from our cooler community, and again, winning, was kind of a spark in my brain. Say, you know what, if we go back to Atlanta the following year, we can start kind of targeting different regions within our company and start creating this employee development in different regions and not always have the same person. So in fact, that was in fact the case. Not only are we able to say, hey, you get to be highlighted as well, and then obviously the following year and so forth and so on, but we get to market that as well. So it's a win-win for the staff member. It's a win for the chef, and it's a win for the team for them coming back. Whether you win or not, you're coming back from a state competition, and you get to highlight within your community, within your region, and within your area. And then again, you get to market that, outside of your community. You get to market that and utilize that as a marketing tool to bring tours in. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I love the fact that you are talking about how you guys are going to be able to use this for the next year in your marketing campaigns. There's so many operators out there that everybody puts culinary and dining on their website, but then most of them will scroll and you'll be like, oh, that's just generic copy. And that's just like reading photos. But like using something like this to say, yeah, we have the 2-time winner on our staff. Plus he's been supported by multiple directors in other communities. It's like this, the proof is in the pudding, right? You don't go to a competition and win it multiple times without having talent in your communities. I think it's a great way to flex the muscle, not just of dining, but of winning the competition. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Manny, what do you think was the most memorable moment throughout the competition that you take away, good or bad, or the thing that you kind of like, man, that really stuck with me?
Well, another things to remember, everything was great. The experience was incredible. But when we present the dishes with the tea that you mentioned before, uh, seeing the judges' faces, when trying the tea and then trying the dish, was incredible. Was incredible. And then after that, when we were on the stage, and then the announcer just say our number team, and we are the winner again. So that was wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. I don't know what I say, but I just scream and jump. I got mug. So yeah, that was incredible. And that experience was good. All the chefs, also the different companies, they were so nice. We were like really nice to talk to them. It was a special day. That was an unforgettable day, definitely.
Yeah. I love the fact that like, definitely the people who didn't win probably they felt like they maybe a little chink in the armor, but everybody I think was able to showcase what they could do because there wasn't a bad plate on that stage. I think, it was a pretty fierce competition. So Alan, as we kind of wrap up here in the conversation, what would you tell peers, like call other culinary corporate directors or consultants like myself who work with smaller companies? What would you tell those people about getting involved in something like this in a competition, either with a state association or even locally in your market, why they should be making that a point?
Yeah, I would say do it, apply, get involved. And the reason why is not for, glorification or, bragging rights. Obviously, that comes with, just being part of being part of this industry. But I think the biggest thing that we have to take from this is when you get involved into something like this or a competition, and you go back to your buildings, you go back to your regions, the ultimate winners at the end of the day are your residents, are your seniors. I mean, they are going to go back and you're going to play around with food. You're going to play around with presentation. And at the end of the day, the ultimate winners are going to be your seniors. It is a win-win, whether you get the trophy or not. When you go through that experience, when you learn, when you meet different folks in your industry from different companies with different ideas, and you take that back as a chef to your building, to your kitchen, and you teach your staff, and you put that experience and that knowledge on the plate, at the end of the day, our seniors are going to be the ultimate winners no matter what. So do it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So perfect. So,
Yeah.
well, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time today to visit with me. Chef Manny, congratulations again on your repeat win. And I look forward to catching up with you guys next year when seeing if it'll be a three-peat. So
we shall see.
we shall see. So, all right, Chef Manny, Chef Alan, thanks so much for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
My pleasure.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.